Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. Tapping holes is one of those necessary parts of most metalworking projects. But these cheap tap handles that I'm sure we all own are really annoying to use, and it never feels like you have the grip you need on the end of a tap. So today, let's see if we can do better. If that sounds like something you're into, hang around to see how this one turns out. So I'm going to work on this one a little backwards. I'm going to start this one off by making the knurled cap that'll make up the threaded adjustment end of the handle. With a little 1045 chucked up, I'll face this one off and whittle it down to dimension. While this tap wrench is supposed to have a little of that classic Starrett 91 style, I don't have one here to take any measurements, so I'm guessing a little bit on the proportions from examples I've seen online, and from what I remember in the few times I've held them. I think about 16mm on the thick end of the handle should be pretty comfy. So now I can give it a knurl, because you know, knurls get the girls. And please excuse the state of my knurling tool. Whenever I use it on brass it gets all gross looking, but it doesn't seem to impart any of that dirtiness onto the part. A little sanity check to make sure it's cutting right, and this can do its thing all the way down the bar. The oil makes it look a little bit dirty, but that knurl is about bang on. So now I can set a drill for a live center and clean up a little section that will make the base of the handle. And now I can start stepping up through the drill bits to get to an M12 tap pilot hole. The reason I'm starting with this cap is that I'm not clever enough to cut these internal threads on the lathe, and I'll have to use a tap, but I will be able to single point the threads on the body later on to make them fit as nice as I can. The irony. Using a tap wrench to make a tap wrench. I'll start with a tapered tap to get it going, and then run a bottoming tap through to make sure those threads go all the way to the bottom of that hole. And apparently I didn't turn the camera on when parting this one off, but it was really cool, I promise. But I simply parted it off and set it aside. I'll come back for the cleanup a little later. And now for the body of the wrench. Now to be honest, this is the longest thing I've ever tried to turn, and this bar isn't particularly consistent in diameter along its length. So I'll take a skim pass to give me a good start point and get to whittling this down to about 20mm or so. Now that's small enough that I should be able to get it into my largest ER32 collet, so I can change over the 3-jaw chuck to the collet chuck and start turning down the features that'll make up the handles. The end I'm working on here will become the end that screws into the cap, so I'll take the whole section down to the size of a male M12 thread to match the one we just made in the cap. And give it a little radius with a button insert for a nice transition while I'm here. I'm getting better at single point thread cutting, but I'm still no expert. But I'll just keep taking lie passes until that cap fits on there just right. That's feeling pretty snug and smooth, so I can give it a little chamfer and start drilling the hole for the sliding pin to go through. Drilling this hole was something that had me a bit nervous. I need this hole to be dead straight and not wander at all. It's also pretty deep, and I don't really want to break a drill bit in there, so I kept it as cool as I could, using sharp drill bits and clearing the chips frequently, and then took it to size with an 8mm reamer. I guess I won't know if that worked for a little while, but here's hoping. With that drilled, I'll flip it in the chuck, face off the other end, and get it into a live center. For the other handle, I really like the tapered handle of the Starrett. I don't know the exact taper, but I'm thinking somewhere around 2mm should look pretty nice. So I'll set the angle with a dial indicator on the cross side to drop about 1mm over the length of the handle. I've got a little extra meat here, and I'm not chasing perfection to the 10th or anything, just close enough that it feels nice. Then I'll cut the fillet into the end to match the other side, and cut this one down until I've hit my target of 12mm at the narrow end. And that's looking pretty tapery, so time to part it to length in the most incorrect way I can think of. Nailed it. Then give it a little radius with a file, polish it up, and it can go over to the mill to get this center section done. Oh god, I hope that stays in there. I know clamping in a mill vise like this isn't 100% kosher, but it feels pretty snug, and I'll take really light cuts with the face mill to bring it down to flat. And would you look at that, it didn't even jump out or do anything weird, so I'll move on to cutting the slot in the threaded end. I'm going to do this on both sides, as well as make the flat on the other face, but maximising the setup seemed like a good idea. This little slot is going to be the home for the retaining pin that will stop the central shaft from turning when the threaded cap gets screwed down. It'll also set the limit for how far the sliding pin will slide back inside the handle. I don't think the length of this slot is super important. It just needs to be long enough that when the pin hits both the limits at the end of the slot, that it's got enough range of movement to allow the shaft to grip onto different sized taps, and clear the hole enough to let you insert a range of taps. That's a hard one to explain, but I'm sure it'll make sense a little later. Hopefully. Then I can flip it and repeat everything on the other side. And now we get to see if I got the bore we drilled earlier right. So we can give it a little spot drill and work our way up to the target of just under 12mm. Now I was probably a little overcautious with stepping up through the drill bits here, but knowing that we're going to be intersecting with that other hole in here somewhere, I thought my chances of grabbing the side of that hole might be minimised by taking it nice and slow. Lastly, a reamer to try and clean that all up a bit, and let's see how we did. And it looks like we nailed it. That centre hole looks about bang on centre, and doesn't look like it wandered anywhere. And there isn't anything looking chewed up in the hole, so I'll take that as a win. And now I can get over to cutting that little teardrop section off to the side of the hole we just drilled. And I got a bit carried away on this one. The plan was to hand file in this 45 on the side of the hole, and thought I would make a start off camera and turn it back on when I was getting close. But I got carried away and took it all the way there before realising I wasn't filming. So, you're welcome for not having to watch me hand file this corner. But basically, I just removed the bulk of the material with a super coarse round file, and then smoothed it all out with whatever straight and triangle files I had lying around. Then cleaned up the sharp edges the best I could, and it actually looks pretty good. I did give the faces a clean up with some files and sandpaper while I was going, because you know, gotta make everything shiny. But that's all the work on the body for now, so I'll get to work on the sliding pin jaw part. I didn't have anything hardenable in anywhere close to the right size, so the rest of that bar you can see in the chuck is now chips, but life goes on. This is going to be the sliding pin that will make its way through the handle, and I want it to fit pretty nice with no play. But I'm turning a taper, which isn't something I usually have trouble with, and it turns out I hadn't locked the compound slide after the last operation. But I didn't figure that out until after I broke out the file and left a few gouges in the part. But at least it lives on the inside, I guess. It does fit very nice even if it looks a bit rough, so I'll get it locked down in a collet block on the mill and cut in that little 45 that'll make the locking jaw of the wrench. There is a little dimple from the centre drill in there, but I don't think it'll worry anything, and I don't have as much material as I thought on this part, so that can be our little secret. and a couple of little flats to help this end clear the angles in the central hole of the body we cut with the file before. And clean it up with a file, and let's see how it fits. That lines up pretty good. This might actually work. Just a couple of little loose ends to tie up, starting with a spring. Using my nifty little spring wire holder, I can give it some tension, feed the wire into a mandrel of the right size, and run it down a few turns. I have sacrificed these tin snips to wire cutting. Don't use a good pair for cutting spring wire, it messes them up pretty bad. My spring is a pinch too long, but with a little grinding, it fits on there good. I don't love that I had to grind into the main coils at the ends, but it works, and it's springy, and I don't have any more of the correct diameter wire on hand, so it'll have to do. With all these parts made, I can mark out for where I want the captive pin to ride in the slot, set it up in a collet block, and get it cross-drilled to accept a pin a little later on. Before I harden the jaw, I do want to quickly finish this knurled cap that I started with. Now the reason I left this to now is that where I cut the threads into this handle, it doesn't clear the diameter of the main part of the body. The body diameter is the right size to just clear a reamed hole, but I didn't know exactly how far I wanted these two parts to slide over each other. But now that I have everything together, I can tell this needs to slip over the body about 12mm or half an inch. So I can ream it to depth, and flip the part over and give it the same treatment as the end of the tapered handle, and get to hardening the clamping jaw. Using the forge for this is probably a little unnecessary, but it hasn't been lit in a while, and blowing the dust out of it seemed like a good idea. One advantage is it heats these little parts up really quick. I didn't do a great job of filming this, but I have a magnet off to the side that I'm checking the part against until it reaches non-magnetic, and then it can go into the quenching oil to harden. It looks right, and the file says it's hard. So into the kiln it can go to temper overnight, and I'll get this one finished in the morning. It's the next day and the cycle is finished, so I'll give it a quick lick on the buffer to clean it up. And that fit is pretty nice. You might not be able to feel it through the camera, but the fit is good enough that it's making a little suction where I close off the center hole. That's definitely going to help it grip the taps better. As the last little part that's going to hold this together, I made a little stainless pin from some stock I had lying around. If I did everything right, this should slide between the two slots in the thread, stopping the central sliding pin from rolling around and doing whatever it wants. So now I can put this together, and the action feels pretty nice, and the spring has a good amount of tension. But this is a pain to hold. I reckon if I clamp the sliding pin down a little while I try to put this together, it should at least give me a start. It needs a little persuasion, but that's looking like it should hold everything together. And the moment of truth. Holy shit, it works. I'm not sure why I feel the need to shake everything when I make it, but nothing is flying out or moving around, and that tap is locked down nice and tight. But it's no good to me if it doesn't cut a thread, so let's see how it performs. And that's pretty satisfying. The extra reach on the handles is something I'm not used to, but it feels a lot more secure than the crappy handles that I'm used to using. And I don't know if it's in my head, but the extra mass of this one makes it feel like it's giving me a little more assistance with driving the tap down. It's probably not, but I like it. I'm pretty chuffed with how this turned out. There's a lot of new stuff in there for me, and whilst no one part is overly complicated, they all needed to come together well for this to work, and work it does. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. If you liked the video, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. I'll see you on the next one.